It's Friday, 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 as Rebecca Black would say, and it's none other than the best time of the week to kick off yet again another free support Friday with none other than yours truly. You guys don't know who I am and you're new to our channel, or are you new to this segment? I go by Fusion Phil over here at JetCAD and we offer these free Friday support sessions so that you guys can ask the questions that you've possibly got hung up on, banging your head against the wall. Maybe you're at a complete standstill, or you're like myself, you've slept 3 nights, maybe you didn't sleep 3 nights, and you still haven't figured out the solution to your problem. So we do have one of those problems that we are going to kick this week's free support session off, and I want to let you guys know this is an interactive kind of thing, so if you guys have questions, comments, concerns, feel free to throw them in chat. There's also a support link down below. You guys can submit your parts and your questions through there at a later date or even currently, so that we could pull those models up in real time and see where your issues are. The last part of this is always, some people get a good kick out of this. If you're looking for somebody to roast your setup, we're also more than available to do so. But I am going to kick this off. I did do this a little bit earlier. I completely forgot. Most weeks we get this timing down. I've already cracked open the ceremonial energy drink to fuel me through this. For those of you guys that don't know, we do have a little gig over here where if you guys do get an answer you like, learn something new, you could always buy us a beer, buy us a steak, or even buy us a lobster. And given to be eating sushi tonight, boys, I do need some of those purchases to come through to offset the cost of my night. So let's dive in this. I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen over. I see you guys coming through. If you guys can hear me all right, let me know in chat. Make sure you can see me. As you guys are all so good for, you tell me how my audio sucks. That's why we spend the time telling you guys how you can cam better. But you should be able to see me. You should be able to hear me. Let me get one more drink here. So the first request has come through from one of our common viewers is, how would you approach some of the deep pockets on a part like this? Obviously, the easiest way to approach these parts is, one, don't take jobs like this. However, if you do take a job like this, this is why we're here, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and real quick jump over to my manufacturer workspace. We're going to go in and we're going to throw in our setup as always. I'm going to go ahead and do milling. And from there, you can see we have our lovely block. As you guys know, we always like to go with fixed size block here when you're manufacturing something. Little offset from the top. It is looking like this material is super close to size here. We actually might make that a little thicker as well. Let's say it's coming out of an 1.25 inch block, right? We need to remove the N because we are working in inch, not Newton meters, I assume. And then let's get some roughing tool paths on our part. This is where, you guys haven't caught our content before, we usually do want to always go for 3D roughing. So we're going to go in and I'm going to do the smart thing, which I fail to do in most cases. I need a size of something to get an idea of scale. As you guys are seeing, that's a 300 radius. We might want to start out actually with pocket clearing in something like a 1-inch insert mill. Now, I don't have a 1-inch insert mill by default, but I do have a 1-inch bowl end mill that can do quite a bit of damage. So let's go ahead and grab our bowl end mill. As you guys can see, that's actually a little giant now. So again, perspectively, I'm way off today. Let's step that down. Let's go back into our default library, back to a bowl end mill at a 1/2 inch. And for those of you that have never seen this before, we could pick speeds and feeds on the fly. I'm going to go ahead and call this aluminum roughing. Then we can get our slotting information. So as always, we have a maximum roughing step down. Probably want to be a little less than that, a little more friendly on the tool. And what we're really looking for is to be able to rough out our part. Now, if you've never seen my content, I'm a true believer of hitting the OK button, getting blue lines on the part, and then determining what is wrong with those blue lines. Just so happens in this case, we go to our geometry tab. The problem is our tool needs to have no boundary so that the tool starts all the way outside of our part and works its way in, just as you guys can see. Now, we are getting a couple of things here, and I'm glad we actually got this part in this tool size. As you guys can see, is this gap is too small for that tool to fit through. Now, if I measure this flat to flat here, as you guys can see, it's a 460 gap between those two. So that 1/2 inch tool just is not going to clear through there. this is where I might approach now bringing in a secondary toolpath. Maybe it's adaptive clearing, maybe it's pocket clearing. But what I'm looking to do is step down my cutter size. Let's get down into like a 3/8. Again, I'm going to stick with the bowl end mill. And where's my 3/8 cutter? And from that 3/8 cutter, we're going to have our rest machining utilized to our advantage. Now, this is what I'm going to show you guys here in a second is when you're stepping down in tools and using rest machining. Go ahead and change my optimal load. We are doing adaptive. Let's do this the smart way, guys. We're going to go ahead and do reset user default. There we go. So it looks like when I derived it pulled through a speed and feed I didn't need, but we're going to let this calculate out. And now you're going to see we're probably going to get a ton of extra passes that we necessarily did not want. And the reason for that can be based on our continuous rest machining. And again, ignore stock less than. This is important. I always like to make this number larger than whatever my stock to leave is prior to. So my stock to leave is usually based on a 20,000 stock to leave scenario. I'm going 0.25 there. And as you guys are seeing, we're seeing a little bit of reduction in toolpath. We're also jumping back and forth across the part quite a bit. But I do see our first question coming in. Santiago says, how to machine a sphere/dimple on a 5-axis. What tool and toolpath is used? So what I'll need on your end, can you send me, in theory, a dimpled part? And then from there, I would be happy to apply toolpaths. If you need me to, I can always create one. But I want to prospectively see what it is you're trying to do, because before I show it, I could just drill them, use a drill toolpath and a ball end mill if need be. So we got Romer out in the UK. Great to see that you're here. And I also see a bunch of you guys out there. Awesome. Great to have you guys here. Feel free at any time to leave us a comment, ask any questions you guys might have. But as you're seeing, again, I'm just basically roughing out this part. I'm not doing anything too crazy here. I'm just trying to get my stock down to a point where, again, pro tip for you guys out there. I know some of you guys are Apple users. I don't know what the hotkey is to turn off stock on an Apple. I know it's F7 and F8 here in the world of Windows. So again, I'm going to go ahead and hit F7 to get my toolpath. Now you can see, I can see my stock a little bit better, and there could be more stuff that I need to do. Now, the reason why I'm taking a lot of you down this path is because at some point, I'm either going to finish my walls with a bigger tool, then I'm going to start to worry about getting into these smaller pockets. Now, I'm going to cheat the system a little bit, is we're going to kind of look at doing some of these pockets. So I'm going to inspect this. As you guys can see, we're getting a loop length. Again, there's probably taper on this part. I don't know where this part comes from. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the edge. And now we're dealing with a 20 thou radius or an 0.41 diameter. Now, this is where things get extremely tricky, extremely quick, but it's still always kind of coming back to the same. If I come in here and I was using pocket clearing, and I'm going to go down to a really tiny tool. I do know off the top of my head, I don't think I have anything that's small. Go into our cutter here. The real problem we're going to start to face is the fact that we have to deal with a very small tool in a very small area. Let's say 0.3125, and we have a 5 thou corner radius. Again, tiny tool. That tiny tool is what we're going to use to get our tool path on our part. And now what I am going to do on this one is we are going to select the boundary, because I would like for the tool path to only stay within a certain region, right? So again, this is where I'm using that boundary selection. Tool center is fine. Again, really what I'm looking to do is just to get a path to start to show why and how what we were doing and what's going to happen. But this is where we're going to run into our first dilemma, right? So this is a roughing strategy. Again, we have stock to leave currently turned on. However, stock to leave based on 20 thou for a 30 thou tool is unrealistic. So again, we'll bump that out to about 3 thou. And as you're going to see, we're going to get a much larger tool path, roughing out the inside of that pocket. Now, again, I haven't rest machined a bunch. I didn't get a lot of tool paths on this to get this down to a finished kind of position. That's why you're seeing that we're kind of starting outside the part. The boundaries look a little weird for the roughing. But as you guys can see, I am now roughing out a very, very large pocket. That was my end goal at the end of the day. And since I have that, I can now quickly pivot into something like a contour toolpath. So again, if I'm looking to do this with 3D toolpaths, this is a mold. I would highly recommend being in the 3D workspace. But what we're looking for, again, we have a maximum step down. Maybe that's going to be smaller based on what we're doing. Again, we don't need stock to leave now because this is a finishing strategy. The real problem we are going to face at the end of the day on this part is the fact that no matter how hard you try, this tool is going to have to stick out a mile. That's all there is to it, right? So a few tricks now that I'll show you guys is kind of setting up tools for these situations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with an inspect because I need to know the rough length that I need of a stick out of my tool. So we need to be about a 1/2 inch stick out. Again, guys, I understand that's like a mile of stick out, but let's go in and we're going to edit our tool. We're going to go to our cutter. And in this case, we're going to go ahead and say the shoulder length is about 0.5, which means your flute length, if you're using more of a die making tool, is probably only about 50 thou. And as you're seeing here, I still have an overall length of 1.5 inches, which is massive. We also have our length stick out below holder. This is where I might actually use like a reduced shank holder. So again, if I go into shaft, I can then add in a couple of segments for that shaft. Again, you have your upper diameter, lower diameter, and we could start to build out our tool. So for example, I may want this to taper down to a 0.1. And as you guys can see, by adding that information in, I have now created a tapered style holder. Again, I'm going to add a few more here because we do need that to be possibly much larger. We're going to go ahead and actually do, 0.5. Let's say we want, trying to come up with numbers off the top of my head, guys. As you guys can see, we can change that up. Again, we want our upper size here. Let's say it's going to be about 1 inch long. Now, the reason why I'm not getting more information out of this tool yet is because I still need to go back to the side of the cutter. And then we may want to change things like our length below holder is close to 0.75. And as you see, we have our tool holder. We could also change our tool length as well. Let's get this down to 1 inch. And we actually might have to increase this. It's been a while since I've had to build this out. But as you're seeing, go ahead and delete this guy. As I like to do at the end of the day is sometimes plugging in obnoxious numbers tends to help. As you can see, we also have tool holders that we can grab as well, which we are missing. So let's go ahead and put one on here. But from that, what I'm looking to do is build that shaft out. Again, we have our upper, our lower, length 10 inches, 1 inch here, which for some reason, I'm not getting the actual full shaft and holder that I'm looking for. So give me a few more seconds. I think, you know what, now thinking about it, I have to change stick out length, and that is the case. So even the best of us have a little bit of a problem from time to time. So your stick out length does control basically, or your length below holder does control both that tapered extension. I'm going to go ahead and change my extension a little bit here. Let's get it just a little smaller in diameter. I think we're going to run into problems later regardless. But just like that, we've now created a extended tool with a tapered shank kind of holder, making it a lot more realistic for what you're machining or what you're doing at the end of the day. Again, avoiding those collisions and damaging the tool. Now, give me a sec here, guys. I do see, well, that we can't show on. So I just got a notification from one of my other customers for some support, but it's not an emergency. So again, what you guys are looking at is getting down in those deep pockets can be a pain, especially with a very long reach stick out tool. This is where you may want to use a couple of tools to get down there. Again, you could break this down by Z heights. So if I was to go in, utilize the same tool path, I'm going to duplicate it. And let's say, for example, I only want to get down to a bottom height. We're going to go ahead and we're going to reference this instead of model bottom. Maybe I go model top minus 0.2. And now the first 200 I'm going to do with a different tool. Yes, I didn't select that tool yet, guys. I'm just showing you The neat thing is we can go through and we can break this down using our Z height control. Again, this is going to be based on model top minus 200. And then from there, our next little pocket and cavity deeper. And we could also go through and start to add in additional areas. Usually what I tell most people is you want to use the rest machining as much as possible to your advantage. I know I'm just changing out the stock or the finishing toolpath, but the rule still applies, right? So again, I go in, I add an additional pocket here in this case so that we can see more and more areas. Same thing would happen with that lower pocket at the very bottom of our part. This is where having something like an extension or a custom ground kind of tool is going to make all the difference. Because if I was to use this tool right now and do the same thing, I might go for something like steep and shallow. That's up to you guys. Geodesic could be extremely handy down there at the bottom of this pocket as well. But as you're going to see, let's say we're going to go steep and shallow. And the reason why I say geodesic is geodesic has blend, a little better strategy at the end of the day. So again, we select our boundary to go ahead and grab the edge over here, extender up, round, and then we want to go inwards. As you guys can see, we're coming all the way around to the other side of our pocket. We're not quite coming all the way down and around, but with a simple addition of a chain, we are now. And again, utilizing our different settings for our step over versus step down, contained inside that area to be able to machine out something like that. Again, as you're seeing, this is all going to come down to my simulation and what I can and cannot get away with. Now, we could always up the ante here at some point, and we could look at utilizing, again, what I'm looking to see here. My tool holder is not making contact, but I don't have my stock regenerated yet, which is why you guys are seeing these errors. What I'm really looking for is that stock or that tool holder and my final part collisions, if there is any. But now we could try to start to add in some live 4-axis or 5-axis maneuvers if you have the ability to do it. But as you're seeing in a 3-axis environment, there's no good way to go about it. You're going to have to get some kind of extension in there. You're going to have to utilize machine simulation as well as clearance checking just to make sure that there is no problem. Again, I'm regenerating some stuff on my side just to see if we can't get that stock model to come through so that when we go back and simulate our steep and shallow, that we're not getting any collision. So what do you guys think? Is this something that works for you? Does this kind of explain and show that kind of series of events? Again, I should have roughed this out, or in this case, as you guys are seeing, I am making a collision between my holder and my stock right now because we never finished up our walls. So again, it doesn't really matter the order at which you do stuff in Fusion because you can always go back and add new toolpaths and change things up. So again, if I came back in here with our 1/2-inch cutter, go ahead and use contour selection around the inside profile here. I'm also taking a chance that this might actually be a vertical wall. And then we're going to go reorder that back up to the top because again, keeping our same tool numbers together if need be, just so that we can get good results. And then again, we'll have to recalculate a few things. So, to all of you out there watching right now, is there any questions that you guys have? Any part files that you would like to submit? That you would like to see something special on at the end of the day? Again, Santiago, I don't know, did you send in a part file or would you like me to model something? Feel free to let me know. In the meantime, I'm going to play around with this a little bit more because I do want to see a few things. Like one, if I simulate utilizing that toolpath that we had, that are we finishing up our walls around the inside of our part? And it does not look like we are, which would lead me to believe that they are actually chamfered. Now we could crank our accuracy up. Give her one more go. And it looks like those walls are tapered. So I would need to use a little different strategy. And if that's the case, this is where I might look at utilizing, again, instead of 2D contour inside of there, maybe doing something like 3D contour around the entire part based on, again, using our biggest tool possible anytime it's possible. And we'll go ahead and say tool all the way to the outside of boundary and get a path on the part and get her reordered. Again, We'll go ahead and let this calculate out. I'm going to simulate this just to see what we have this time. And we could always go back and add more stuff as we go. Again, what I'm looking for is to knock that 20 thou material out of the way as much as I can. Again, really looking to get the walls machined back to 0. We'll go ahead and pause here real quick so that the software can calculate. What you're seeing here is a heavy step down in our cusp heights, as well as a corner that still requires some cleanup at the end of the day. So again, this is something that's different for each and everybody. If you have the ability to utilize a machine that has 5-axis, this is where we could talk about doing something maybe with swerf throughout these walls here. Again, a lot of different things we could do at the end of the day to make this part much more efficient. 2D contour, maybe we go out. We could still say with that ball end mill. I would assume this is like a slide to go in a mold. So the outside walls at the end of the day should have been vertical as far as I know. And again, this is where you pick and choose your battles, is if I do 2D contour around the outside of the part, again, we can use the fast GPU simulation here just to see, is it going to finish up those walls? Give her a sec here. Wrong tool, but we might get the right results, which is, yes, those walls are all vertical. So again, we go into our contour. Based on our contour, we could actually use rest machining again. And we could let it do its thing and self-trim, possibly remove areas that are needed. This is the fun of just about any CAM software, is now we play that game of, you know what, we could actually ignore stock less than. And this is, again, one of those things that we need a number that exceeds kind of the settings in our other toolpaths. And what I mean by that is you have to account for tolerance in a toolpath as well with those stock to leaves. As you guys are seeing, again, we went ahead and made some changes. It still thinks there's material on the outside corners. In this case, we could actually start back at the top where we should have started, which is we want our tool to be based on a silhouette of our part. Maybe we want tool to actually start center on that area. And again, you could see we could reduce down where we're going. So there's lots of little neat tips and tricks. We need, maybe a flat strategy in here as well. 3D milling. We're going to go ahead and hit this with flat. Clean up our floors and our walls without wasting the time of getting a tool out, maybe a 2-inch shell mill in that case, to clean up anything and everything else. So again, we have our flat strategy to clean up our floors, utilizing contour to get inside there. Again, just spitballing some ideas. We are going to run this part on a 5-axis. We can now go in and utilize something like our tool orientation. Z off of this edge, again, Z up, and then I could go through and pick these 2 lower rails. And then what I want to do is I'm going to highlight both of those holding control, right-click align, and I'm going to give them a little bit of an extension just so at the end of the day, we're not staying and starting our cut and exiting our cut directly on our part. So again, as you guys can see, just some more stuff added into this as we cycle down and through. Again, this is a bowl end mill. I may need to shift my Z. Pretty easy to do once I can actually see whatever that tool path has or whatever I'm looking to program on that part. Again, making sure I'm not colliding with the backside. So this is your guys' chance. I'm going to go ahead and check the old ticket system real quick and make sure that nobody has submitted anything else. I don't want to call this early, but I may have to call this early. Looks like my other customer solved their own problem. So we are all good there. Let's go ahead and resolve that ticket. Any other questions out there? I see you guys. I see you guys out there hanging out. Anybody have anything in particular? Any major problems on their parts? Anything that they want to see? Again, I'm going to go ahead and start forcing the rest machining to come through. Again, previous operations, we've trimmed down this tool path to no longer be doing the stairs up at the top. We're only working around the inside area. Again, we're not quite fully getting through this gap, so I might have to just go smaller, smaller, and smaller. However, this case, when we do the pocket clearing for that little area, I could probably now start to say tool outside a boundary, from previous operations again, and we should actually see that trim down, allowing us to possibly start our tool outside the part. In this case, we're still getting helical entries, and we can extend that even further if need be. So again, this is just a couple of tricks that you can do to start to get that pushed out further. As you're seeing, we're now going down and waterfalling the entire inside area. But this is why we have neat things like the ability to utilize avoid touch surfaces if we wanted. You're seeing we're now getting into that other pocket, which is also nice. So I might just say, you know what, just don't touch any of this area and don't go deeper than a specific selected area, which would be here. And then what you're seeing in the offset world is coming from my tool. So again, maybe I just want to go 0.10 or 0.01 past that lower area. So now I'm using a combination of a lot of different things to start to force the software not to touch those areas or not to machine those areas. We still do have contact over here on our wall. So this is where I now can go back over to my toolpath. As you guys can see, I did give it those red walls to avoid. I'm actually going to add in now maybe a 20 thou radial kind of clearance off that wall. And what that's going to do is that's going to offset that surface. And I could show you this on the model to, again, not only avoid that surface, but stay away from it and trim everything back by 50 thou. As you guys can see, we're no longer needing helical entries, maybe a little bit, depending on where we are down here at the bottom. And we're getting in and out and roughing out those areas. Now, this pocket here on the right is kind of nice because in the event that we were looking at doing something, you know, with a 4th or 5 axis, this is where we could always come in with a traditional 3+2 mindset. And we'll say contour, for example. Let's swap our tool out here real quick. I don't know if I have a ball end mill that small. We might have to manipulate a ball end mill. We do have a, 1/16. Let's get back up into our normal tooling that we've already built. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tool. We're going to go ahead and duplicate it. And then we're going to make it a tool that is a ball end mill, not a bowl end, right? So again, ball end mill, same kind of dimension, same kind of holder for the most part. But if I'm looking at this part in a certain view, I just used my view cube to cheat here, and I turn on tool orientation, I can actually align to view. Now Z is pointed at me. So wherever my boundary is or selected. So again, I'm going to go ahead and grab my boundary here. And again, tool center on boundary, yada, 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 tool step down. Let's go ahead and go like 10 thou. But as you're seeing is I'm now angular running up and down that face. And I'm doing that based on nothing more than a tool orientation. So going to a fixed position and then still running in a 3-axis kind of environment. Now you could do much more with this. If I was to actually convert this over into our deep and shallow toolpath, again, you would need the machining extension you should buy from us over at JIT Cam. But as you're going to see is we could now bump over to 5-axis. Again, this is going to be full 5-axis simultaneous. We do have the ability to change our primary mode. We don't want to be vertical. We want to lead and lean this tool. Again, getting further and further down. Lead and lean basically means we are going to be perpendicular to the surface. Now, I can do additional things. Tool axis limit. Don't go past 90 degrees. Machine at tilt limit. Collision avoidance if you guys need it. Again, the idea here is to be able to utilize different tool paths and kind of get different results based on what you can and cannot get away with. So again, I might go steep only. Again, step down 100 thou, and let's see what we get. This might be a good one for a scallop kind of tool path. And as you guys are seeing, we are getting a collision because we didn't have collision avoidance on. And because we're trying to stay perpendicular to the surface, this is where you have a lot of different settings inside of Fusion. However, when you start to stub up your tool a little bit, let me actually back up here because I need to change, not this guy. We need to say shaft and holder, overall length. Actually, we might have to change our overall length and everything. Again, should be able to shrink that up a little bit, get it back inside the holder. I think what we're looking for is, there it is, I was thinking correct. The shoulder length is what's getting us more than anything. So now we've shrank up to 300 stick out from the extension. And let's go ahead and swap out our 5-axis back to what I would consider is, let's go ahead and utilize vertical, which means it's going to automatically tilt once it can no longer reach whatever it needs to reach. Again, putting us into a 5-axis motion if need be. Now, the problem is because we're pointed at this angle, it thinks it can reach everything. Again, would be a wise thing to do. But if we turn off tool orientation and then come back and run it again, at some point, we will start to tilt in and out of that tool so that we can actually machine those areas. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to look at tool axis. And as you guys see, the tool axis is still, for the most part, primarily vertical. But this is all, again, based on the length of my tool and how I can reach. Again, open to you guys. The floor is all yours. If you guys have any questions, any problems with that, I'm going to go ahead and check my emails here real quick because it looks like Autodesk emailed me about something cool going on. Let's see here. Okay, that didn't really work very well for me. Okay. Well, guys, any other questions? I'm going to shift gears here in a minute if I don't see any more Fusion-related questions, because I know a lot of people have been bugging us and sending us messages on our website about OScrap shop management tool. So I think this is the time where I'm going to pivot over to the OScrap tool. You guys let me know. You guys ready for it? Last chance. Going once, going twice. All right, we're going to pivot over, and I'm going to show you guys the latest and greatest from OScrap. Now, it's not going to look like a lot's changed. It's kind of the luxury of dealing with a software like this, is the UI itself is kind of the way it's going to be. As you guys know, we're big fans of the old light versus dark mode. Again, you guys can be, I apologize for the solar flare that you just got, but you can utilize both light and dark mode. But where we have started the development of this and what we saw with all the shops that we tend to deal with is a lack of shop management when it comes to the floor, right? There is some issues with quoting. I love the stuff that a lot of other software companies are doing, like toolpath. Toolpath has got a great system for building out quoting. We are trying to work with them to build a plugin so that both of these softwares communicate between them. But I'm going to walk you guys through a day in the life of being new, as well as how it works and why you may or may not want to implement something like OScrap. So again, guys, if you have any questions about Fusion at any time, feel free to throw them in chat. I'm here to help you. I'm just showing you something a little extra that we have. So running right off the start is I've just wiped my account. And as you guys can see, we have our work centers as well as our work center groups. Now, you do have the freedom to add as many as you want. As you guys can see, we have a saw, we have our shop rates. These are very important when we start to look costing analysis, but also for our quoting, right? As you guys can see, I can add additional work centers. I'm going to go ahead and utilize the VF4 as always. Maybe you're thinking you're going to charge roughly $90 an hour, and this is going to go in my group of mills. Now, you do have freedom, again, to customize and make this whatever you want. So one cool feature we are working on is, let's say, for example, you have a 3-axis mill group. Well, any machine inside that group allows you to drag and drop jobs across those groups. So again, as you guys are seeing me do, I don't want to bore you to death with this. This isn't a huge change on our end, but ST20Y, we're going to throw that in the lathe department. What I want you guys to see is the fact that when we add costing to these, sorry, I missed that one there. Let's say we're going to go $75 an hour on this. It allows us, when we estimate and quote things, to pull that costing through based on our time studies, right? So now what does that mean? Well, I can now jump back into the customer side of things because I, of course, need to add some customers. And you guys know I like to pick on you guys out in the crowd. We're going to go ahead and go with rower. Oh. And again, we have rower, let's say rower MFG. Rower is the guy that we're going to look for. And we have rower at best.com, right? As you guys are seeing, it's very easy to get your information in here. And with the QuickBooks connector, we can import and export pretty fast. But the idea is on our side is we've always thought about this as we want to estimate a part, and then we want to put those parts, or estimates as we call them, onto a quote. As you're going to see here is this is where all the magic happens. This is where all the information pertains to that part. And I'm going to walk you through that process. So we're going to, of course, this is the customer we're going to, picking on my other videos. If you guys haven't seen my other videos laid earlier this week, let's say we're going to use AC 1999, and they are looking to purchase 25 of those. So as you're seeing me do is I'm walking through the process of just plugging in the information or copy and pasting it out of an email, as most of you guys know. So again, I like the idea of 6061 round. We're going to need 3 bars of that. It's going to cost us $72. And let's just say I'm going to order 36-inch pieces from McMaster. So again, as I start to add in my pricing here, you're going to notice that the pricing down at the bottom for our individual pieces as well as our total is going to roll up into what we would formally put on our quote and send to our customer. So this is where the big difference is for some of you with the spreadsheets, you guys are used to grabbing work centers and then plugging in, maybe you're not going to use setup time. We understand it. But as you're seeing me do here is I have the ability to literally plug that information in and get a costing based off each individual operation or work center. So again, we're going to go from the saw. We're going to jump over onto our lathe. Maybe it's going to take 15 minutes to set up the lathe because he's going to have to change out the jaws. And then we're looking at about a 12-minute cycle. Again, once we're done there, we'll throw it over to the VF4. Maybe it's going to take closer to 20 minutes setup. Now, when you're estimating setup, I don't know about you guys. I always used to estimate based on that there is nothing on the table, as if you got to put in vices and tram them up and everything. Again, we're going to say maybe it's a 15-minute cycle. Who knows, right? Whatever your information is that is what we're plugging in here and rolling up the total costing to your customer. So again, the nice thing is if you will still manually want to go back to your customer and say something like, hey, to do 25 pieces, it's going to cost roughly $50 a piece. You have that freedom, but we're still going to want to save our estimate because we're going to take this estimate. And like I said, the idea is you would have a lot of parts estimated to a customer, which means we can now come back by those line items. As you guys are seeing is I'm building out that quote. Maybe you know the due date, maybe you don't. We're going to go ahead and push this out to the 28th. And then I can actually pull in those different estimated line items. As you're seeing here, this is where we are building out our formal kind of quote to deliver to the customer. So again, just like that, we've pulled our quote item in. We could attach our documents, files, things like that if you want, and we could save that quote. Now, you could have more than one line item here, guys. Don't get too caught up in the fact that I'm only doing one, but we're going to go ahead and now mark it as sent. Of course, we could have exported a PDF, as you guys see here. Again, we can customize these PDFs. It's not a big deal. Company letterhead, or we could push it over to QuickBooks to be sent. Now your customer comes back and says they're going to accept your quote, and they want to go ahead and convert our now estimated part, and we're going to convert that onto our job board. This is where it now walked us into kind of what we like to call our customer 360. It's an overview of all the estimates you have for them, the different quotes that you've sent out, again, status of quotes, as well as now what we are referring to work orders. If you guys haven't kind of figured this out, an estimated part turns into a work order. On a work order, you have operations. They all roll back to our quote for tracking. But now what does that look like on your shop floor? Well, for your guys on the shop floor, the big thing, awesome blah out there. Great to see that you made it to the stream. The great thing about this is, by all means, your guys on the floor have the ability to punch in and punch out of their time clock. So let's say I'm starting my day just now. I know I'm late to it, but I can also go to my shop floor and look at what work orders are sitting on what machines and what operation needs to be done. So as you guys are seeing here, work order 001 for TAC 1999, op 10, I can come in and I can start my setup. this is where I need to plug in my badge number, which I'm going to actually have to go back. I used to have my badge numbers in here. I need to go into my actual user account and see that my badge number right now is 1. I'm going to swap that out for a little more friendly number. Let's say 1765. And again, what it would feel like I'm worth 60 bucks an hour because I'm the owner, of course. And then back to the good old fashioned shop floor, right? So I need to go over to my saw. I need to start my setup. I punch in my badge ID for time tracking purposes. And just like that, we're now starting our process and getting everything going. So now I could jump to another work order if you're doing more than one thing. Of course, once we get this actual machine into our start, not our start, but our running. So we're going to end our setup. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to log anything. Maybe we scrapped one part in our setup, saw cut crooked, blade broke. You never know, right? I can now do my run cycle, right? So again, same thing. Maybe you have a different employee that's going to run the parts versus somebody actually doing the setup. In real time, you can see that I'm tracking these things out. So now I jump over to my op20. We start our setup, again, punching in my badge ID. And from there, you can see I now have multiple things running, something in setup, something planned to be due later. And that's basically the whole functionality here. Now, as we add more setups with different, or not setups, add more work orders with different due dates, we're going to automatically configure these tiles. Again, the idea is so that anybody and everybody in your shop can have visibility, as well as making sure things are meeting your deadline. So again, we have our update of new scrap pieces in 6 days when it's due. I'm going to go back in and we're going to go ahead and claim some parts here. Let's say we ran about 15 parts. Log that against the job. And again, you guys are seeing the progress bar step up through that way. So again, let's log another 10 parts. And just like that, you can see that the progress, of course, is 100%, but I have not yet completed out my operation. So again, we're going to go ahead and hit pause run, complete my operation. And just like that, that is now completed and it is sitting here. The cool thing is you could see where something is in the system as you guys are seeing me toggle on and toggle off. So if I was the guy on the lathe wondering what's going on with op 20 or op 10, I can look for that. You can also search by the work order number by itself. Again, the whole idea here is to give your guys on the floor as much visibility of what they should be doing without the hand holding, without the people coming into your office to ask what they should work on next, right? So again, I'm going to just rinse and repeat. We're done with setup. We can go ahead and confirm. I'm going to go ahead and now go back in, start run, throwing up that actual badge number. We're now in the run cycle. And from here, let's just go ahead and say we're going to go ahead and just claim all 25 parts. Actually, we're going to go ahead and claim our parts first. 25. There we go. Again, we're going to pause, and then we're going to complete that next operation. So as you guys are going to see, this is kind of a rinse and repeat process. Starting my setup. Jumping back over to my job one more time. We don't need to claim any parts yet. We're going to end setup. And then lastly, we're going to go in and start our run cycle. So this is kind of the breakdown of a normal workflow across what we call O-Scrap. Again, our main focus is we are trying to help you guys that are spreadsheet warriors, that are trying to change anything and everything, as you guys are seeing. Oh, we got to go ahead and go back. We're clocked in. We're now in the run cycle. Let's go ahead and pause. Let's not pause. Let's claim our parts. Pause our run. Lastly, as you guys can see, nothing has came off the job board yet because we still need to go in and complete our operation. But that's it. We just want to give you guys better visibility where things are, what needs to be done, where it's sitting in the process, and maybe, even just maybe, if I go back, we will have the ability built out here to give you guys reporting. Again, employee efficiency. I know that's something that everybody hates, but since the time is now logged, we could actually pull that out to even look at, is your actual shop, are you being proficient? Are your actual parts ready to be shipped out? Again, this is all stuff built in, automating the system, making it easier for you guys. Let me know if you guys want more info. There is a link down below for O-Scrap. feel free to use it to reach out to us at any time to get a more custom demo or get you guys set up on a trial. In the meantime, though, I'm going to jump back to Fusion because I see that we did get a few more people that jumped in here. You guys have any questions at any time, feel free to throw them in chat. I'm going to give this a few more minutes. I don't see any tickets come through. Do you guys want to see anything else? Oh, here we go. Of course. Why is it always broaching? It's always broaching. What is it that you're trying to broach, and what kind of broach are you trying to use would be my question. So, and if you have a part that would be awesome as well, I will be glad to see what I could do during this time frame to talk broaching. But we also do have a video on broaching, depending on what it is. So I'll give blah blah the chance. Probing. Broach or probing? What is blah blah looking for? DOS 3D printing. When you start a new sketch, it goes to the origin, even if it's far away. Can you change that? So what you're talking about is if I was right here and I click sketch and pick my plane, the fact that the origin is in place, or it automatically zooms you in, zooms you out. I'll give you a second here to answer, because on my side, it didn't quite zoom me in, zoom me out, but it could be because effectively in scale. Let's go ahead and test a few. Let's say we're looking at this isometrically. Let's get our layout grid turned on, something that I normally don't do. And if I zoom way out against the layout grid, new sketch on a plane, and I think it orientated me, but it did not scale me in or out. When you start on a path that's always away from the, I need a little more information. Start on a part. Oh, okay. You want to move your part to the origin. That's what you're going for. I see. Okay. Okay, give me one sec. Let me go ahead and whip out a real quick and easy part here. I'm going to turn my layout grid off before I lose my mind. But let's say, for example, I have a part sitting over here in space, right? Again, example purposes. Now, it's not near the origin, which isn't the biggest deal out there, but you can have the ability to do something like a move command. As you guys can see, you have the option component, body, yada, 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 is I can actually pick on my part, but a lot of people don't realize in the move area, you have things like point to point. So if I wanted to, I could actually grab center of the sphere here, or center of the circle, and go over to my origin. And the move command in most cases works quite well to get your part where it needs to be. Now you can get much more fancy than this if you guys needed. I'm going to go ahead and undo this. You have the ability to do joints if you're working in components. You also have the ability to do constrained components. As you can see, I don't have a component in this design. So I'm going to do the hasty thing of converting my body to a component. And now I could go in and I could use something like constraint component. So again, I'm going to go center of here to origin. Again, constraint component is nice because it's not a joint, which there's been a shift in this for you guys. Joints are good for motion. Constraint components is good for joining things together or aligning things. Shouldn't say joining, joint. It's great for aligning things because you have three-face alignment and a lot of other things that work out very, very well. And it also fixes them in place so that you don't have to deal with things moving around. So I was hoping, all right, let's see here. Blah, blah. Once again, we'll get back to you in a second, but DOS 3D printing, let me know. Does that help you out? Like I said, the move copy works really good if you're opening the original file, where something like the ability to use joints in constraint component work out even better. I can, yes, we could do that. So give me a sec here. I'm going to get back to you, blah, blah. So what we're going to do is we have our item way over here in the middle of nowhere. If I start a sketch and I pick top surface, you're saying that it is now fit you to screen. Yep. So what you're seeing is the fit screen maneuver happening. So let me back this up one more time. Let's say I turn off my origin just for making sure that it does that, and I pick the top surface. It is trying to automatically fit the screen, the origin at the center of my screen, and then scale me in. And by fit, what I mean is down here on your toolbar, you guys have the ability to, in the zoom window, fit is F6. But if I go ahead and I got to remember here, it's been a hot minute since I've had to do this. But if I go up to my preferences, I think there is a preference you can change. And we're going to go ahead and go into general. We're going to go into design, and auto look at sketch is probably the one that you're going to need to turn off. As you guys can see, that would be where I would start. Again, if I turn off the auto look at sketch, we hit apply. Let's try this one more time. I'm going to get the origin on, and I'm going to go ahead and remove that sketch. We do a brand new sketch, and I click that. Let's zoom in on it. I click that surface, and I'm no longer auto orientating and looking at it and bringing that plane into reference. So again, just by turning off that one setting should probably actually fix your issue. There it is. Easy enough. Very rare that I get some of those questions, but since we're talking about design right now, I'm going to point out a few others. Is the auto look at sketch, as you guys saw, valuable? Turn it on, turn it off. Up to you guys. As you guys are going to see, you also have a few other items in here like auto hide sketch on feature creation. This is the annoying task that if you created a circle and then extruded it, the moment you extrude it, your sketch turns off. You can turn those things off. Now, one that I would highly recommend, I can't stress this enough, scale entire sketch at first dimension. Showing you the difference between these. You guys have this turned off by default. I'm going to turn off the auto hide, and I'm going to have my scale on. And what you're going to see, again, I'm just going to scrap everything in this file and start back at square one. I'm also going to turn off my origin before I lose my mind. But let's say, for example, I want to create a sketch on a plane, right? Now, I want to draw a bushing, and I want, give me a sec here, getting a couple misclicks. I want a through hole through this bushing. So as you guys are seeing is I'm a firm believer of just making sure you could do something. But now when I go back and try to dimension this, for example, as you can see, I'm 21 inches. Well, what if I only want that to be a 2-inch OD? So I'm going to go ahead and say 2 divided by 2. And just like that, the entire thing is scaled down to the size. So I didn't just move a rectangle. I moved all of my rectangles in this case. Now, the second one, that option that I did turn off, is when I go in and extrude now. As you guys are going to see here, actually, we wouldn't do an extrude here. Let's just keep with the idea that we're making a bushing. Is when I hit OK now, you're going to notice my sketch stays on, right? So again, I untoggled the auto hide sketch after feature. Now it's still on. Again, this is up to different workflows. There's a lot of reasons why this can be good. It can be bad. But as you're seeing, I would manually have to go toggle this on the right. But before I change my settings back, I want to make something clear to you guys. I don't think a lot of people understand that you could actually go to your sketch and you can go down and you can show dimensions automatically, right? So this is a neat thing about this, that instead of going back into my sketch to edit things, this is extremely valuable in 3D printing. You could actually show your dimensions and at any time update them in real time. As you're seeing, I just changed my dimension right there and everything else went with it. So again, if that sketch is off, you don't see the dimensions, but with the sketch on, you have full freedom to be able to edit it on the fly. So give me a sec, guys. I am going to get to some of your other questions now that they're starting to come in, but what I am going to do is turn on my auto hide sketch feature because I will lose my mind. And I like to keep most of my settings as factory stock as possible because you guys know we train you guys. We don't want you guys to open up your Fusion and wonder why I have something and you don't, all because of a little checkbox. So getting back over there, awesome. Great to have it, DOS. I appreciate the subscription. I'm going to scroll back up here. Machine Builder. So many issues with making a working machine simulation, regular crashes, at least on your computer. Scott, I would say this. If you could send me the model, I'd be happy to evaluate what's going on with that model, as well as taking a look at some of this stuff. Now, I do like the fact that you're honest with yourself that it might just be your computer. But if you want to send me your computer specs too, I'm happy to take a peek at that and see maybe if that's causing your problems. I will say, I think this is a double-edged sword, guys. I have seen machines that are built for simulation with a lot of stuff in them that will even choke down a computer like mine, where sometimes we just need to lighten up the machine simulation and make it as simple as possible for Fusion to run it efficiently. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over that question right now. Intro to probing. Very basics, say, for example, how to probe a two-sided job. Blah, blah. I'm going to need a little bit more information. What do you mean by a two-sided job? Are you saying setup 1 and setup 2? I'll give you guys a couple of seconds here to answer. I'm also going to go check the ticket system, make sure none of you guys are sneaking in here at last minute. Always got to keep my eye on that. I do love when my customers have a problem and they ask me, and then they find out a couple minutes later that they fixed their own problem. Always a good time. Always a good time. That's the great thing about working with us over here at JitCAD Cam is the fact is we tell you guys, don't waste more than 5 minutes on a problem. You can email us. We're usually readily available and get you a response back within 5 minutes that tends to fix the problem right out of the box. I always hear it. I spent 3 hours bashing my head against the wall for you to be on a phone call and tell me to check one box and fix my problem. So I'm going to go ahead and assume, again, blah, blah. I'm going to need a little more information. You're talking about a example to probe a two-sided job. Give you a few more minutes here. And again, guys, I know a lot of you are starting to join. I'm seeing the numbers go up and down. If you have questions at any time, feel free to ask them in chat. This will be the perfect part to get back to. Setup 1 and setup 2. Awesome. Okay. That's what I was thinking. This part's going to work out for us quite well. So I am going to scrap basically everything in here. We're just gonna rip this guy from the beginning, and we're gonna do this right. And what that is gonna require, of course, is probably starting on the back side of this part. It would be much wiser. Now, as I've already got my stock set up, if you guys missed this, I'm gonna go back in and show you real quick. We have our Z-axis faced up. I am going off of my stock right here, very top. Now, that is where I am also going to probe here in a moment, but I'm going to show you a couple of probing tips that I think a lot of people don't know about. Is first and foremost, I don't know why. I know why probe WCS is in this window, because as we teach you guys top to bottom, right? You create the setup, then you're probably going to probe it. I have the great habits of going over to inspection and probing WCS, but guys, it gets better. You could also hit S on your keyboard and map your own shortcuts like probe WCS. Again, I'm going to pin this to my toolbar now, so in the future, I should hit S and then do probe WCS. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my probe. I believe I do have a probe in here somewhere. Let's go ahead and expand out my cloud library. Good old-fashioned Renishaw 6mm probe. Now, a lot of people confuse the fact that when I want to go in and probe, I'm going to probe my stock. But it doesn't matter, and I'll show you this. I'm going to pick the top surface. I do not need my work coordinate system to be in the same center as where I'm probing right now. So what I could do if I wanted to is I could actually probe this corner based on those two surfaces, and Fusion is going to do all of the math to where that WCS should sit in the middle of my part. So I just want to make you guys clear of that. But as you're seeing, there would be a corner probing procedure, and then from that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in a Z-axis probe. It's not necessarily needed, and we're not going to go off model. We're going to go in and we're actually going to do this off stock again. There's my stock. We're going to change out to a Z surface instead. And as you guys can see, I'm currently probing exactly in the center. You can change this up. Again, we go to geometry. I have the ability to choose either a face, Z surface, and you could also change where that location is. But that's basically picking up setup 1, right? Now, let's say, for example, I am going to apply a toolpath to this. We're going to go ahead and 2D contour this guy all the way to model bottom. And we're going to go past, I don't know, right? As you guys are seeing me do, I'm going to go ahead and grab a tool. I think we have that big 1-inch cutter in there. I think this is going to work quite well for us. And I'm also going to turn off my tool axis because we are just 3-axis machining. So let's just say I'm done with this part. I need to flip it over and then I need to do something in setup 2 now. So again, I rinse and repeat. I create a new setup. As you guys are going to see, in this case, I got lucky with my Z-axis pointed up. We would walk through that same process all over again. Now, something important here, and I cannot stress this enough to people, is this checkbox for continuous rest machining. You need to check this. I highly also recommend click the 3 little dots and save as user default and go ahead and hit OK, because as you guys can see is that hat is now there for me to utilize and continue my machining process. Now, the location of your WCS is a whole nother debate. Me personally, since I have a flat part, I would probably go off of my model box point. And again, this is just probably extreme laziness if you ask my wife, or proficiency, since, you know, I'm the master. As you can see, I can go off the bottom back left corner. What does that mean? Well, I can now probe my jaw face. I could probe maybe the top of your parallel, or if you have just soft jaws with a step in it. And then if I'm utilizing something like a machine stop to hold this in that back left corner, I could actually just put a placeholder of a 1, 2, 3 block in my machine, probe back left corner, top of that 1, 2, 3 block, and then lower into that corner. But the trick here is once you get it set for your first part, if I was to go in and face this guy off, we're going to go ahead and do some multiple depths here. Now that I've decked off my part, this is now when I would probably probe my second operation. So again, we hit the S key because we pinned probe WCS to the old keyboard. I grab my probing system. And then with that, we're going to go ahead and pick up maybe again this corner. As you guys can see, that is where I want to set my XYZ from. And if you wanted to, once again, you can actually right click here and you can go in, I think you can do a new operation. I never do it this way. Is it? New operation. This sucks. Don't do this, guys. Do not do what yours truly is trying to show you right now. This is a terrible workflow. But probe WCS one more time. And we're going to go off the top of the model here. Again, we can drag that point around to get it to wherever we want. And just like that, I'm using the ability to deck off my part to get down to my machined surfaces and then possibly pick up these 2 areas. Now, keep in mind, I don't need to probe Z because we've already done that when we did our first setup. We deck our first part, you measure it, adjust your machine a little bit, and then you don't really have to worry about it as long as your fixturing will take it. But this is just a way that I would look at doing it, and I think it would be extremely beneficial. Again, I try to be as lazy and proficient as possible, which now thinking about it, we go back to my first setup. I should actually use that same exact location on my first setup. Again, now I could use the same work offset for setup 1 as setup 2, and I don't have to move it, and it's kind of a known position in my machine. So, let me know. Blah, blah. Does that work for you? Is that a good understanding of how it's going to work for you? Let me know in chat. Guys, anybody else has any questions at any time? I'm here for you guys. We are hitting my lovely 1 hour mark, which I thoroughly enjoy. But this is up to you now. This is bonus time. Any questions you guys have, any problems, any issues you've ran into, I would love to hear about them. I would love for you guys to send me models. I'm actually going to do what I love to do, which is hold you guys ransom. You guys know how it is. If you guys are finding out something new or want to give a little extra to help support this channel, you could buy us a beer, you could buy us a steak, buy us a lobster, depending on, you could buy us multiple if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and jump back over. We also are a Autodesk reseller of software here in North America. However, we also do offer support for anybody not just in North America. You buy that all through our website, as well as ongoing training and post-process development. So, any other questions? Anything else that you guys want to see? Anything else that you're curious about? I'm gonna leave this up to you. Waiting on you guys. Going once, going twice. Awkward silence. Oh, circular reference. Ah, okay. Insert component into machine builder. Scott, I'm gonna take a step back here, man. I don't want you to think I'm picking on you. If you are getting circular reference, I'm trying to think that error out at the top, is usually what's happening is you've gotten stuck in some type of loop. And oh, this is gonna be a tricky one. If you could give me a real quick bullet point in chat of what you're doing to get that, I think I can recreate it because I think I know what you're talking about. I would also say, though, is, Scott, I would need the way your question is phrased about. Okay, we'll take a look at that here in a minute. Yeah, the insert component into machine builder. Okay, so inserting fourth axis into my VMC. So I would assume off the top of my head, I don't have any examples here, guys, but we might be able to pull some up. Actually, yeah, let's break some stuff today. Why not, right? It's Friday. I would say what I'm thinking in my head, blank Friday, but you know what? Blank up Friday. Maybe that's what we'll call it. So this is a machine that is coming inside of Fusion by standard. As you guys can see, it's already built out. But if I wanted to insert something in this, for example, this lovely little block, and insert this into my current design, and as you guys can see, that great little block is now sitting on my table. However, one thing I would need to do is I would need to break the link on that. And this actually makes it so that your machine builder is now separated and doesn't have that problem. Now, the actual, I'm assuming, Scott, is you've now inserted your rotary, which that shouldn't have been the problem. I think the problem you're referring to, correct me if I'm wrong, is when you try to go select and reuse that machine inside of Fusion, it tells you that it's already associated, right? Awesome. Das is building a 3D, or he's building his own DIY CNC. Love to hear it. Love to see it, guys. Great time out there. But basically what has happened is we've manipulated this part in some way, shape, or form. Let's say, for example, I was going to use it on this machine. Oh, man, I don't even know where that machine lives. We've also just absolutely butchered it. That's not the... Now the fun is going to be trying to find it and pull it in here. I'm going to use a different machine, for example, and you guys will see why this works. So basically, once you bring your machine in, again, there's my part. This is on a upside down. Don't worry, we'll fix it here in a minute. Boom. Okay, so there's my part. I actually went completely the wrong way, so let's go back. We don't need to be negative. Positive. Maybe I'm crazy. Hold on here. Yeah, we need to... Maybe I broke something already. Pretty standard for me to break stuff. Yep, I broke stuff. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back. Drag this through the other way. We will fix this later. Oh, I'm crazy. Yours truly is having nothing but the best of times, right? Why you don't use machines that you've butchered inside of Fusion. There we go. All right, you know what? Let's just take a look here. We're all upside down now. Reactivate this. Take this. Be able to show our machine, which is not coming through because I don't think we have our base. Okay, let's just simulate this with the machine and see if I can make this work. If not, I'm going to go grab another machine. Hey, it's in the right spot. Messing with me. Okay. So what happens is you guys have inserted the machine into doing something, and then you realized you had to change the machine. In this case, good example, added that rotary axis. Now, what I highly recommend is if you do something like that is one, this is a newer update. You can actually right click and replace machine. This is very, very valuable at the end of the day. But if you are running stuff like this, and I go through and I post process this, and I have NC programs turned on, what will happen, go ahead and post some code here real quick, is you now have a machine tied to a setup, which is also tied to the NC program, and that's all residing inside of your document. So if I go to my machine library right now and I go to document, you can see right now this machine is linked, but it is all in the document level. This machine right now is also different, which a lot of people confuse this is the one that's in my cloud for everybody to use. And this is one that is locally hosted inside of that individual part. So again, this is why Autodesk made some changes to the system. If you go in and you say replace machine, as you can see, they now have given you this awesome option to go through, select your new machine, whatever it's going to be. We're going to get problems here regardless of what I do. So let's just go ahead and grab a machine. And then we could say, I want to replace all setups and NCs, the setups themselves, only the one I'm working on, and quickly hot swap out that machine from there, right? So again, we'll have to regenerate our code here or delete and repost, but that would be the way to look at doing it. Questions on that? So you're going to have to let me know, Scott, was that the issue that you're having? Again, what I've seen in the past is you have to go to the document, and then you would have to go through and you would actually have to delete. Again, if I delete here, what you're going to see is I now get this lovely warning. So we're going to remove from all and delete from document. Again, cleaning out the document itself. It's no different than the tool libraries at the end of the day is you have your cloud libraries where the tooling, but then you also have your documents and then what document has what setup, so forth and so on. So let me know. Questions outside of that, guys? Anything else that you're looking to see, or wanting to do? To go ahead and check the support system one more time. I don't see anything. Go ahead and delete that. We don't need that. That doesn't really answer my question from somebody else, but awesome. Awesome. Scott, glad to help out in any way I can. So to the rest of you, does anybody else have any other questions? Did any of you guys out there actually catch my, we're starting over with the old Milling Mondays and Turning Tuesday question videos. Slowed things down a lot to walk you guys through a much more higher level explanation of everything and starting to dive into some more niche neat things. As you guys can see here on Free Support Friday, we focus really on very, very in-depth details, and we do move a little bit faster. Now, again, if you're looking for something a little bit slower pace on your learning and training, feel free to check out our Turning Tuesdays and our Milling Monday videos, because we will be diving through all of the different tool paths and all kinds of scenarios that you guys will encounter. However, I think that's it. No other questions, no other problems, no other issues. Shocking the amount of problems I see on Facebook that have been solved in our video content. If only people saw it, right? So guys, as always, I'm going to start the outro. If you have questions, feel free to ask. I'm happy to stop, get back to Fusion. But it's not what you know, it's who you know. You guys all know Fusion Phil over here at JitCatCam. We love hosting these Free Support Fridays. We do them for each and every one of you so that you guys can get the answers you need, not waste countless hours digging through forums, as well as other Facebook groups. And who knows, my favorite system is if you want to get the right answer fast, post the wrong answer on your own question. And most of the time, the groups will actually give you the right answer very quickly. But you can also use us at any time that you want. Feel free to use the support chat down below. Now, we do have to prioritize other people first, but we will try to get to you as quick as possible. And like always, most cases are nothing more than a checkbox or a wrong selection inside of the software. So before I dip, last chance, going once, going twice. Anybody have any other questions? None? Awesome. Well, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. Look forward to seeing you guys hopefully back here for Milling Monday next week, where we're going to dive into roughing strategies. 2D roughing strategies. Have a good one. See you guys on Monday.